TBC is an expansion filled with important choices to make throughout your journey in Outland. Today, I'm gonna help you avoid some traps and common mistakes that you, as a player, will likely fall into, and help you save a lot of time and gold in Outland. I'm gonna tell you all about them and help you make the right choices. With that said, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. You guys seem to enjoy my TBC videos, and I am very passionate about TBC, so there will definitely be more content like this in the future. With that said, let's get started. Number 1. Don't underestimate professions in TBC. In Classic WoW currently, other than engineering, there's no professions that you can learn that give you rewards specifically tied to you. For the most part, everything can be traded. There's no real reason to pick a certain profession other than to help your guild by making them avoid fees to other players. TBC is a completely different story. Many professions give you rewards that are either soul-bound to you or that require you to have the profession learned and leveled up to be able to use them. For this reason, players need to be very careful what professions they go for in TBC. Picking a profession that isn't optimal for your character could set you back hundreds of gold and hours of farming. For example, tailoring allows you to craft very powerful gear that will last you for a very long time in TBC, like the Spellfire set. As you can see, to use this set, you need to have tailoring with Spellfire specialization. Another example is Lionheart Champion, which later turns into Lionheart Executioner, which is an incredibly powerful weapon for Arms Warrior that will last them for many raid tiers. And then, let's talk about the elephant in the room, leatherworking with its drums of battle. For those who don't know, back in TBC, leatherworking drums didn't give any debuff like they did later on in Wrath. So what high-level guilds would do is they would have everyone learning leatherworking and just spamming drums one after the other, increasing the overall DPS of your raid by a ton. Now, let's make this clear. I am personally against this. I think this is bad game design, and it basically forces everyone to have leatherworking. I hope Blizzard changes this by either making it so that drums would give everyone the exhausted debuff, or by making it so that drums affect the whole raid instead of just your group. That way, you only need a handful of players to have leatherworking to benefit the whole raid. I made a video about whether Blizzard should change TBC, and StaySafe brought this point up on stream after watching my video. I hope I had talked about this, but I will probably make a part 2 to that video and talk about it there. Okay, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here, but you get the point. Given Blizzard doesn't change drums of battle, a lot of players will have to default to picking this profession. And if you think this is just going to be the super hardcore players who will do this, that's what we thought too for world buffs, but here we are today. Anyways, let's move on. Number 2. Pick your quest rewards cautiously. In TBC, you need to be very careful while picking quest rewards. The reason for this is because there's a lot of pre-raid bis items that drop from random quest rewards throughout your journey in Outland. So you could for example be leveling a priest in Shadow spec and go for a spell damage reward, when that same quest would also have given you your pre-raid bis healing item, and you just missed out on one of your pre-raid bis items for raiding. Same thing for example if you're leveling a DPS warrior and you plan on tanking for your guild at level 70. You stumble upon a quest that rewards either a DPS trinket or a tanking trinket, and you decide to pick the DPS trinket because that's the spec you're leveling at, not knowing that the other trinket was your pre-raid bis trinket. Now obviously, I'm not going to go over every quest that you need to be careful on because otherwise this section of the video will be way too long, but basically, what you need to do is go and find a pre-raid bis list for your class and spec and carefully skim through it. Check every item, and if any item drops from a quest, make sure to take note of that and be very careful when you go and do that quest while leveling. Number 3. While we're on the subject of quests, make sure to grab your KARAZHAN attunement quest as soon as you can. KARAZHAN will most likely be the first raid you will set foot into. It's a very easy and quick raid, but the attunement for it is a pain in the butt. I would compare it to the Onyxia attunement quest chain, but maybe a bit simpler. It first requires you to complete a couple quests in Deadwind Pass, and those quests can only be picked at level 68. So when you reach level 68, remember to complete those pre-quests first before entering any dungeons, and start to think about your KARAZHAN attunement in general to decide which dungeons to do next. There's tons of videos and written guides online explaining in detail each step of the KARAZHAN attunement quest chain, so I will include a link to it in the video description. Have a look once you reach level 68 and start thinking about your KARAZHAN attunement in general, and keep it in mind because that will probably be one of your top priorities at max level. Number 4. In TBC, attunements mean reputation in dungeons. So let's talk about rep farming in dungeons before doing quests for Thrallmar/Honor Hold and Cenarian Expedition. TBC introduced heroic dungeons. Heroic dungeons require you to have a key to enter them, and each key at first requires you to be revered with a specific faction to be able to buy it. And this is where it gets tricky. Low-level normal dungeons in Hellfire Peninsula and Zengar Marsh give you reputation up to Honored, but you need to be revered to be able to enter heroic dungeons. So how do you get revered? Well, the intended way is to just do all the quests in Hellfire Peninsula and Zengar. Reach level 70, you'll probably be halfway through Friendly or Honored by then farm Steam Vaults and Shattered Halls at level 70. Those are the only dungeons that give you reputation from Honored to Revered. So you just missed out on all the reputation that you could have gotten from Hellfire Ramparts, Blood Furnace, Slave Pens, and Underbog. And now you're level 70 and you're farming Steam Vaults and Shattered Halls for hours to get to Revered. This will make you waste a lot of time. The fastest way to go about getting revered is the following. Once you land in Outland, completely ignore every quest in Hellfire Peninsula and Zengar Marsh, and start directly farming dungeons until you're honored. Once you're honored, you will probably be high enough level to go to Zengar Marsh. If not, you can do a few quests in Hellfire Peninsula and then move there. From there, do the same thing with Slave Pens and Underbog, until you're honored with Cenarian Expedition. And from there, keep leveling normally with your method of choice until you're level 70, and then, once you're 70, go and finish the quests in Hellfire Peninsula and Zengar Marsh until you're revered. This will 1. Save you a lot of time, and 2. Give you quite a lot of gold since low-level quests reward gold instead of experience at max level. Of course, if you really want to do the quests in Hellfire Peninsula and Zengar Marsh to level up, you can do it. It's not a big deal since Steam Vaults and Shattered Halls do give you rep until honored, once you can enter them. But keep in mind, it will set you off a few precious hours at first when TBC first releases, and your guildmates could already be doing heroic dungeons when you're stuck doing Steam Vaults and Shattered Halls to grind rep. Number 5. Aldor or Scryers. In TBC, once you reach Shattrath, you're gonna be invited to pick a faction, either the Aldor or the Scryers. Those factions do have a small impact on your character. Small being the keyword. Imagine the outrage that it would create if Blizzard released an expansion where choosing a reputation like this would have a huge impact on your character. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. The long story short of this is that it doesn't really matter much which faction you choose in the long run. The main thing that affects your character in the long run is the enchants that each faction gives. Depending on your class, one faction's enchant might be slightly better than the other factions, but it's nothing too big. What it does affect though is your performance early on. You see, both factions sell very powerful pre-raid base items, and picking the right faction at first will have a huge impact on your character in the short term. This deserves a video on its own because there's a lot of items to go through, but the rule of thumb is the following. If you're a caster or a healer, you might want to go Scryers. If you're a melee, DPS or tank, you may want to choose Aldor. There are exceptions of course, like Shadow Priest would rather prefer to choose Aldor, but in general, that's the rule of thumb with choosing between those two factions. And to add a side note related to this, there's a quest in Netherstorm that gives different pre-raid bis rewards depending on which faction you chose in Shattrath. That's yet another factor to choosing between the Aldors and the Scryers. As I said, this deserves a whole video by its own, and I will probably make one closer to the release of TBC. Number 6. Don't choose a class based on how good it performs. If you don't take anything from this video, take this at least. This is probably the biggest mistake I've seen players make, and the saddest part about it is that it's been going forever, and it will still happen in TBC. We all know by now that hunters and warlocks and shamans are the most on-demand classes in TBC, and warriors and rogues are the least on-demand, at least early on. But I really urge you not to make this mistake. Don't play a class based on how well it performs. Play a class that you will love playing. Your class is the scope through which you experience everything in the game, from leveling and questing all the way to raiding and PvP. So the biggest mistake you can make is to choose a class because you heard it outperforms every other class, rather than choosing a class that you actually enjoy playing. And I feel like this is going to be a more widespread issue in TBC, because at least when a new expansion that we never played before releases, we don't know in advance which class is going to be performing the best in advance. So players, for the most part, choose what they like the most. But the problem with TBC is that we know in advance which classes do the best DPS, which classes are on the most high demand, and many players will base their choices on those factors. When in reality, you should play what you will enjoy playing the most. And TBC is probably the expansion that will punish you the least for playing something that you like but that doesn't perform as well as everyone else. Because at the end of the day, you pretty much need every class and spec in your 25-man raids to cover everything. From Blessing to Heroism to Exposed Armor. This is something that was very much not the case in Classic. There was absolutely no reason to bring a Red Paladin or a Boomkin. But in TBC, you need at least one of each class and spec to have an optimal raid. So please, choose a class based on your preference and not based on what performs the best. Number 7. Save your gold in Classic right now for the days to come. Just like in real life, it is easy to look at all the gold you have and decide to spend it on things that aren't gonna benefit you in the long run. In TBC, your flying mount is gonna set you off 900 gold. And your epic flying mount is gonna cost you 5,000 gold. And that's just flying. Leveling your professions, which I talked about earlier, is gonna be a huge gold sink. Crafting your BIS and pre-raid BIS items is also gonna cost you a lot. So I would advise anyone to start saving as much as possible as soon as possible. Now, some players are suggesting having an economy reset before TBC, to solve the huge inflation of gold that happened in Classic and to give a clean slate for TBC. So basically, farming gold now would be useless if that happens. I like this idea a lot in theory, but there's just one massive issue with it. The reason you would do this is to stop players hoarding tens of thousands of gold right now from completely crashing the economy into a wall once TBC releases. I understand that, but at the same time, I think if you're someone who knows how to make thousands of gold, you're gonna have absolutely no problem doing that again in TBC. How long is it gonna take someone who has 10,000 gold right now to farm that back in TBC? Probably no time. Now again, I think resetting the economy is a step in the right direction, and it would solve this issue in the short term, but it would be equally as fast for gold makers to farm this gold back. So I don't think this solution by itself is gonna magically solve everything. And to be honest, I don't know how you can solve that. So I will ask you guys, do you think a gold reset would help in TBC? And what do you think Blizzard could also do along with that to solve the gold inflation that will inevitably happen in TBC? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, because I will definitely be doing more TBC content in the future. With that said, remember to have fun, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Bye for now.